Hello, this is McD the Beast, and this is McD Sports 4 coming to you today with my South Florida football predictions for the 2019 college football season. Before I continue, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and please subscribe to the channel. I have a subscriber goal of 200 subscribers by August 24th. I would love to hit that goal, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you're not subscribed, you won't regret it. Anyways, we're going to go through the pros and cons for South Florida, then your best case and worst case scenario, then your 3 toughest and 3 easiest games. Then I'm going to go through the schedule game by game, tell you which games have South Florida winning and losing. Also give you a score as well, and then give you the final record prediction and conference record prediction. Before I continue, do not hold me to the game by games picks and the scores. Just hold me to the final record prediction at the end, just to clear anything up. But anyways, we'll start off with the pros and cons. 2 pros and 1 con. First pro is Charlie Strong. This guy's a very good head coach. Charlie Strong, I know Texas fans would disagree with that, but Charlie Strong, I think he's in the right place right now. I think he's a very good head coach, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And speaking about the defense, that's your second pro, the defense for South Florida. The defense for South Florida will be one of the better defenses in the American, so I threw that under the pros. Your 1 con is the offense. You did have a decent offense 2 or 3 years ago when you had that quarterback. I forget his name. My apologies. But now, I think Quinn Jackson was his name maybe. But now your offense is kind of lackluster. And I do think that is going to be kind of an Achilles heel for you this season. So now let's go through your best case and worst case scenario. Here's the schedule right in front of you. I have your best case scenario at 11-1, your worst case scenario at 5-7. I look at the Wisconsin, Georgia Tech, Navy, Temple, Cincinnati, Memphis, and UCF game. Those 7 games right there, and we'll throw the BYU game in there as well. Those 8 games, I do think that South Florida will lose at least one of those games. Worst case scenario, 5-7, you lose 7 out of those 8 games, basically. So that's my opinion right there. So best case scenario, 11-1, and worst case scenario, 5-7. Your 3 toughest games are Wisconsin, UCF, and Cincinnati. Wisconsin is going to be your toughest game of the year. You get them week 1 at home, but it's going to be a tough game for you, in my opinion. And we already did the Wisconsin football predictions, so you already know where I have Wisconsin going if you watched those. UCF, you already did those predictions as well. UCF, in-state rivalry game you get at the end of the year every year. I do think that UCF, they might take a minor step back because Mackenzie Milton isn't going to be playing because of his injury, but overall, UCF, you get them on the road, still a very tough opponent. And then Cincinnati, they were a bit underrated last year. They won 11 games, I believe. So Cincinnati is a team that I threw as your 3rd toughest game. I could have went with the Georgia Tech game, but I'm not high on Georgia Tech. Your 3 easiest games are South Carolina State, UConn, and East Carolina. Let's go with South Carolina State first. FCS opponent, no debate there. UConn. This might be the last time you guys are playing UConn, so definitely an easy game there. UConn, worst team in the American. And then I went with East Carolina. Personally, I could have gone with SMU as well, but I went with East Carolina because I think they are the worst out of those 2 teams, East Carolina and SMU. So that's why I went with East Carolina as your 3rd easiest game. So now let's go through the schedule game by game. I'll tell you which games I have South Florida winning and losing. First game, Friday night game at home against Wisconsin. If you always saw my Wisconsin football prediction video, you already know who I have in this game. Wisconsin is a team that I think is definitely going to be decent this year. South Florida, I think, is going to give them a test, definitely a tough test. It'll be a very competitive game, but I have Wisconsin by a touchdown here, 28-21 Wisconsin, as South Florida drops the opener. Next game at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, a team I am not high on at all. I think Georgia Tech is going to be the toilet for the next 2 or 3 years. I just saw something saying the ACC is going to have 10 guaranteed spots this year in bowl games. I don't know how the hell they're going to put 10 teams into bowl games, but anyways, Georgia Tech, you do get them on the road. That is the one maybe suspect thing right there. But I think South Florida goes on the road into Atlanta and beats Georgia Tech very easily as well, 31-13 with that good defense South Florida has. I think they shut down this Georgia Tech offense. And you did beat them last year as well. Next game next game, South Carolina State. This will be a win against the FCS opponent. 45-3 is the score I have. So you beat South Carolina State. Then you get your first bye week. Every team gets 2 bye weeks because of how their calendar aligns with the schedule. Then coming off the bye week, you get SMU. An SMU team that I think will give South Florida a good fight. I think this could go maybe a little bit back and forth. Could maybe even turn into a little bit of a shootout. But I'm going to go with the home team here in South Florida. I have them winning this one by a touchdown. 30-23, South Florida. Next game at UConn. This will be a win for South Florida. Last year, this game was a lot closer than it probably should have been. But I think this year, I do think this year that South Florida is going to go ahead and beat UConn very easily. It is on the road, so UConn might be in for a little bit. But I have it 41-10, South Florida. Next game is the homecoming game against BYU. If you always saw my BYU football prediction video, which, by the way, good job killing the views on that one because that video is well up to 500 views. Thank you for that. But BYU is a team, in my opinion, I think they're about a 500 team. This is the homecoming game for South Florida. If you already saw the BYU video, you already know who I have in this game, and I do have South Florida in this game. 31-24. I think it'll be a very competitive game. I have South Florida winning at home during homecoming by a touchdown. Next game is at Navy. Navy is a team that was really disappointing last year. I think they're going to bounce back some this year. I really do. I also think that Navy is a team that could pull off a few upsets this year. I do think this is going to be one of them. I do have Navy beating South Florida by 1 point, 24-23. It will be kind of a low-scoring game, but give me Navy in the upset. It's in Annapolis, so give me Navy in that one, 24-23. Next game at East Carolina, a game that was really close last year. I think you only beat them by a touchdown. East Carolina is a team that I think is gonna definitely do well under Coach Houston in his first year. He's the head coach. He's the former head coach of the JMU Dukes. But I think he's going to do well at East Carolina personally. I think you're going to see some improvement with East Carolina this year. But I still have South Florida winning. I think South Florida is just better than East Carolina at this point. I have it as a 10-point game, 27-17. South Florida. I think this will be a competitive game, but I think South Florida just pulls away late. Then you get your second bye, and then you go through the meat of your schedule. First game, Temple at home. This is a Thursday night game. Temple is a team that did really good last year, but they're going to have a new head coach. I think Temple is a team at this point that could come into this game with 2 or 3 losses, could be kind of desperate. But I'm picking South Florida to win. This will be a back and forth game. Could maybe even turn into a little bit of a shootout. But I think that I think Temple's going to lose to South Florida. I have South Florida beating Temple 35-27. Next game, Cincinnati. This is going to be a low-scoring game. South Florida. The game's in South Florida. Cincinnati at this point might have a loss or 2 in their schedule, just like South Florida does. I went back and forth with this one. I definitely give Cincinnati a shot in this one, but I went with the home team in South Florida. I have South Florida winning this game 17-12. I don't think South Florida is the better team per se, but I do think that South Florida, since the game's in Florida, the heat is there's still gonna be some heat down there in the Tampa Bay area, unlike in Cincinnati. I think that's gonna be the difference, the home field advantage. 17-12, South Florida. Next game is against Memphis. This will be a shootout. Every game against Memphis is going to basically be a shootout one way or the other. That's just the Memphis style right there. That's just how they play. I went back and forth with this one. I do think the Memphis offense will have some success against the South Florida defense, but won't be enough. I have South Florida winning this game by 2 points. 44-42, South Florida. I think it's a shootout, but at the end, give me South Florida to squeak by Memphis. And then the final game of the year at UCF against Central Florida, a team we already did. So if you saw that video, you already know who I have in this game. But Central Florida is a team that I think is better than South Florida. I think this game is going to be competitive, but I have Central Florida winning this game 40-27. Central Florida is just a better team than South Florida. But anyways, that's my game by game right there. If you count up the wins and losses, I have South Florida going 9-3 with a 6-2 conference record. 9-3 with a 6-2 conference record. This is my official prediction for the South Florida Bulls. Pretty good of your South Florida as a 2-game improvement. Last year you came out and won like 6 or 7 straight at the beginning of the season, but then you dropped the rest of your games late in the season. The schedule actually sets up that is a real possibility, but I don't think it will happen. I think you guys go 9-3 with a 6-2 conference record. Comment down below. Tell me what you think about this prediction. I always like hearing from y'all. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and please subscribe to the channel. It would be greatly appreciated if you do that. Thanks for watching, and this is McD the Beast signing off.